Okay, I'm not going to be as long as these guys. All right? Yakking away. I'm Brooklyn Prepper. Anybody catch my YouTube channel ever? All right, thank you. All right, I got a YouTube channel. I've been a prepper for 20 years, right, for a very long time, right? There's really not much more I could go over, but who's new to prepping here? You're new to prepping, you're new to prepping, and most people are new to prepping, right? All I can say to anybody about going into this prepping lifestyle is basically take it slow. You know, take it slow. You know, do it at your own pace. You know, there's plenty of stuff. This could be overwhelming. You know, everything that you're writing things down, and it could get really overwhelming for you, right? But my advice for you is to take it slow, right? And your biggest tool you're going to have is not going to be your knives and your lanterns and your bag and everything. It's going to be your mind, right? Because you could misplace all this stuff, but I misplace my mind sometimes, but you can't misplace your mind. What you're going to have to do is try to get yourself into a mindset. Don't get yourself into a mindset of, oh my God, this is going to happen, the end of the world is coming. We hear a lot of this stuff on TV, right? We hear a lot of people talking about how bad is Armageddon's coming and all that, right? We've been hearing Armageddon for how many years now? You know, the Russians were supposed to take over, and before then, you know, it's everything. So a lot of stuff out there right now. It tends to make people to be paranoid, right? But being a prepper is not being paranoid. Being a prepper is about just being a smart human being like your grandparents used to do. Well, my grandparents used to can and jar and put things on the side because sometimes my grandfather wouldn't be working for 6 months. So they had to sit back and survive, right? As far as me thinking like, is it going to be some kind of big major disaster happening? It's highly unlikely, right? But what I'd like to add to what these guys do is it's all great stuff to start with, but go slow. Really think, look at your situation, and really think what you're going to need. You know, you could take the time to learn a bunch of skills. You could take some classes in engine repair and camping and fire making. There's tons of classes you could do if you want to do that. Or you could buy a little at a time. Fill your basement up every week. You know, I got an extra 20 bucks, I got an extra 100 bucks. I'm gonna buy a couple of things of dehydrated food to throw in the basement. And before you know it, you're gonna go in the basement and say, man, I got no more room left, right? There's two types of preppers, right? There's one prepper is a guy who says, oh, I need to prep and doesn't do anything, right? Then you got the other prepper that says, I need to prep and then goes all the way. You know, there's no in between prepping, because once you start doing this, you are gonna go all the way. Because I've been doing it for 20 years, my wife is throwing me out of the house already. I got no space left. You know, it's tons of stuff, and you will keep on getting more and more and more, and hope to God I never have to use it. But it's always, but you gotta take your time. You build before you know, you're gonna blink your eyes and say, well, like I'm at the point now, I'm starting to make giveaway stuff to neighbors and stuff like that. I make these little boxes just to try to get their minds going, right? Because I'm done. You know, it was hard. I had to go to therapy to stop prepping. Right? And now I'm done. So now to feed my addiction, I'm starting to make boxes for all the people, right? Just to get their minds going, because I think as Americans, or you want to call ourselves patriots, also we have the obligation to take care of ourselves, right? Why do I need somebody to take care of me? Why do I need somebody to take care of my family? And as we've seen with all the other disasters that have happened, no help is coming. You know, the Chariot's not pulling in, and Bloomberg's going to be throwing rice off the back of a truck, right? Or the president's not going to be parachuting in supplies to your area. You're going to sit in darkness for a very long time, right? If you can't take care of yourself, shame on you. I don't feel bad for anybody that sits there and complains, well, I'm cold, I'm hungry, and my kids, and nobody's coming here to help me. What do you expect? What do you expect? Like them to pull into your yard and help you, right? But the mindset of a lot of people today that are not prepping are the people with that mindset of, somebody's going to come help me. It's not coming, and I guarantee it's not coming. I ran shelters during Sandy, you know, and I can't tell you how many people came into these shelters, right? People that were in need, people that never took the time to do anything. It's more important to buy a $500 iPhone than to buy $500 worth of food for your family, right? It's more important for people to buy tremendous flat screen TVs, right, just to watch a ball game on, to buy food for your family. So when something does happen, you know, shame on them, right? You people all here, you're basically new to it, and I just want to let you guys know, this, you know, you can watch my channel if you get a chance, watch a couple of videos on there. I show in a very simple way, right? I'm not one of those channels that are going to show you how to tackle the ends, go into a house and start shooting and fighting. We all know you need something to defend yourself, because there's bad people everywhere. We learned that in Connecticut not too long ago, right? So, and there was no disaster. There's going to be bad people. You're going to have to defend yourself, but don't get hung up on that whole ramble nonsense, you know? Buy something, learn how to use it, protect your family. There's no reason to have web gear all over the house and a gun behind every wall. You need to get your mindset more or less on, how am I going to feed my family, and how am I going to get water? Water is the most important thing, and like as Jamie was saying, water is your most important thing. But just don't sweat it. Take your time. You know, I've been doing this for a long time because it was always a hobby. And my father was a survivalist and everything else. It was always a hobby for me, right? And I can see where a lot of people walk into this, they see all this stuff, and they're like, wow, it's going to take me years and years and years to get all this stuff. And it will, unless you have big pockets, you know, if you have big pockets. But take your time, one roll of toilet paper at a time, that's it, you know, and you'll be there before you know it. But most of all, get your mind going, get a plan with your family, what you're going to do, where you're going to go, where you're going to meet, right, and then you could rely on each other, you know. That's the biggest part of prepping, like I said, is your mind, right? Don't keep on watching all these Doomsday Preppers episodes with these guys that got bunkers under the ground and machine gun nest and, you know, come on, we're bugging out. This guy has like a facility, like a fortress, and he's bugging out. I said, where are you going to go? Okay, you bug out, I'm moving in, all right? So it's just nonsense. A lot of the stuff you see on TV is nonsense, you know? So if you're going to bug out, if you're going to grab a bag and you're going to bug out, you better have a place to go. Right? You're not surviving in the woods. I did tons of training of wilderness survival. I spent 15 days at a pump with no food or nothing, surviving off the land. And I'm telling you right now, it sucks. All right? And it's really, really, really hard. You know, by the end of the 15 days, I was exhausted. Another few more days, I'm dead. You know, you're not doing it in the woods. You're not going to do it yourself. If you got family that has a place in the suburbs or up in the mountains, fine. But if you live in the suburbs or even in the city, I live in the city. I'm very comfortable in the city. You know, my house is brick. It's its own little fortress, right? So I'll just sit there and wait for everybody to kill each other, I guess, and I'll come out of my house and just pick up the pieces. Like, if you got nowhere to go, make your home your castle. Right? And that's what I hear a lot of times. People go, I'm bugging out, I'm leaving. Why? You know, you got a house. You got a perfect, where you going to go? Have a place to go. You know, and that's the most important thing. Have a place to go, have a place where you're going to meet up with friends, and you're all going to stay together. You know? Or just make your house your fortress. And believe me, you know, there's not going to be zombies and motorcycle gangs coming down your street and, you know, shooting at you. And it's not going to be that. Dawn of the Dead's not happening, right? It's going to be a bunch of desperate people, cold and hungry, and everything. That's what we have to prepare for, right? And then you want to keep the mindset. And if there's people you can help, you want to help. You know, if you see a family that's really in desperate need, you could bring them into your house. Because believe me, that family might be saving your life. You know, during a bad situation. So we got to really respect our neighbors. And when you're becoming a prepper, I consider myself sort of like a sheepdog, right? I believe God gave me this job to do this. You know, that's why I've been infatuated with it all my life. And in times of need, you know, I'm not going to be blowing bridges up, you know, just to keep people out of my area. I'm not going to be putting phony signs up and tell you there's more food down there, just pass by my house. I'm going to try to help as much as I can. I'm not going to put my family in jeopardy, but my mindset is, you ever notice birds fly in flocks? There's a reason for that. Safety in numbers, right? Predators come one by one, and that's why you have so many. You can overwhelm a predator, right? You're gonna have bad people out there, and we all know that. It's just the element. You're gonna have desperate bad people, and it's sad, right? But you learn how to defend yourself. That's it. And but the more people you have, if you got a lone gunman and he's looking to scavenge because all his life he just saved up guns and bullets, and he's walking on your block with like 10 guns on his back, and his pockets are full of bullets and everything, and you can see this guy a mile away because he's going to be the only guy in the street with a tactical vest on. All right, that's how you can see.
I've been fighting in to have
Yeah. But this is the guy that didn't even save a can of beans. He thought the gun was going to feed him and his family. Well, it's not going to happen. But most of the people you're going to see in a bad situation are going to be desperate, cold, and hungry people, right? There's not like when Sandy happened, right? There wasn't mass marauders running the streets and killing people and shooting up the neighborhoods. It was just people helping each other and just trying to get past a hard time, you know? But that's basically what I have to say. And what I want to do now is, anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions they want to ask me to pick my brain, or what you should do, or what you want to do? You know, I'll gladly answer them. Go ahead.
I was thinking about currency. If we have one, if it goes to one currency and all the money is like absolutely worthless, do you have any like silver? Do you believe in having stuff like that?
My currency is food. Food, seeds is currency. Tobacco, alcohol, coffee. It's a big currency, right?
Sugar.
Because when things, like I know you see a lot on the internet, it's like our economy is going to collapse, so we should buy gold and silver, right? A lot of these people telling you to buy gold and silver are the same people that are making money off the gold and silver, right? So they want to scare you and say, oh, the dollar's going to collapse. Let me tell you something, if the dollar bill collapses, I don't care how much gold and silver you got, what are you going to do, walk over to somebody and break a piece of chain off and give it to them? I tell everybody this, the best bartering items is hygiene products, food, seeds. During the last Great Depression, the biggest bartering item there was seeds. You could have handed somebody a gold bar or a handful of seeds, and that person would have took the seeds. It's survival, right? If our dollar tanks, it's all over. Gold is worth nothing because there's no money. Nobody's in their right mind is going to give you something that's tangible for something that's just going to sit on their shelf. It's not going to happen. And a lot, I know, and that's a lot. I hear that a lot on a lot of radio shows. You know, they have those quick commercials. Oh, the currency is about to tank. You better go buy gold and silver. You know, our currency was supposed to tank like 30 years ago. You know, it's still going strong. If the currency tanks, our country tanks. Our country tanks, the rest of the world tanks. Simple as that. We're going to go back to the prairie days. You know, and that's where you want to say, you know, instead of me spending $4,000 for this gold and silver, I have $4,000 worth of food, right? And I'm going to save my dollar bills. I'm not going to throw away because if everything tanks, it's going to go good again, and then I can take my dollars out again. You know, they're not going to switch us over to some kind of phantom UN currency, and the FEMA camps are coming to control us. They can't even take care of people during a hurricane. You think they're going to round us up in FEMA camps? They don't got the money. They're just going to leave us outside where they look through their bunker. You know, why do you think they're spending so much money on dehydrated food and ammunition? Because they're going to hide, you know, while we're all out here. But I say if we find out where they're hiding and we weld the doors shut, right? So we won't have no more of their nonsense no more, right? They're the ones who put us here, right? That's how I think. That's what we should pay, a welder, right? Welder down, right? If you never want those bunkers welded shut, we get the politicians in there. They're like, they're not letting us out, right? But as far as that, the currency, I would go with more, my mindset is more stuff that I could use, you know. I wouldn't waste my money on gold and silver. You know, that's just my opinion. If you feel differently, you know, but I wouldn't waste my money on it, you know. Yes?
There was a movie that I saw a while ago that Denzel Washington did called The Book of Eli.
Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah,
Very good.
So it was a lot of what you were saying. I remember in one part of the movie he was going up to like an old hardware store in town and
To charge his batteries.
Yeah, and the
To charge
guy
his
says, "Well,
batteries.
what do you want?" He goes, "Do you have any lip balm?"
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
All
not
he
silver,
wanted
not
was lip
gold,
balm
not,
because
you know,
they were-
not bullets, you know, and fancy guns. It was lip balm he
And
wanted.
then
Yeah.
he had a little bottle of, or somebody had a little bottle of, it was like a hotel shampoo bottle.
Yeah.
and some woman washed her hair, and it was just the biggest
Yeah,
luxury.
the biggest, it's that stuff. See, when you look at, like, we look at movies, like, we look at The Road, which was really, really far out there. You know, it's like, there wasn't even a mosquito around, right? I think if I was that father with that kid, you ever see the kid in the movie, he was like, Papa, Papa, Papa. I'd be like, shut up already, I'm trying to survive here. That movie annoyed the hell out of me because there was nothing alive. There was, and, you know, so, like, any question, I don't care.
One barter item that I expect would be antibiotics, anti-inflammatories.
Absolutely. And I could see,
Get them.
That's my question.
see, that's
Any
another thing I would,
For how to get them.
how to get, yeah. Okay, this is, I got a little secret for this one, how to get them, right? Never mind getting them or keeping your mindset to getting them, right? The trick of that, when it comes down to that, when you're talking about antibiotics and stuff like that, many years ago, we didn't have antibiotics. How people kept themselves well was through herbs. There's a berry called elderberry, right? And let me tell you a little quick story about this. And you know, elderberry. If you want to like look up Israeli, in Israel, they did a whole write-up about elderberry. They had a pandemic happen many years ago, and what happened? They didn't have antibiotics and stuff. They used this elderberry syrup, which I make myself. I get the berries, I make concentrate. They used this elderberry syrup, and it actually cured people from the flu, the plague they had, right? So many years passed, and the same thing happened. The same thing, I think it was in, I forgot what happened. A same pandemic happened, and they had antibiotics and vaccines, all that nonsense they want to stick into you, right? But this one country decided to look back and see what the people did years ago. And they did this elderberry thing again, and people weren't getting sick. It wiped out the flu. And like, now when we say antibiotics and all this stuff, and like, half the times these antibiotics are not working anymore because every time we drink a glass of milk, every time we eat a piece of meat, every time we eat a piece of chicken, it's loaded with antibiotics because the way the food industry now is, they blow these animals up with so much shit all the time, and they have to give them antibiotics to keep them alive long enough to sell to you, right? So you're getting something that's got steroids and antibiotics in it, and when people are getting sick now, they're saying, oh, a new strand of flu is here, and it's antibiotics are not working. It's not the flu, it's us. We're not working no more because we overused it, right? But on that same subject, is my best thing is look into a healthier lifestyle. There's tons of things on the net about eating organic food, right? Eating the right stuff. Don't eat as much meat. Cut down on your meats. Keep your body healthy and hydrated, and you won't get sick. You know? Go into, who eats organic here? Oh, so
Try to.
I'm gonna leave now. Everybody's like, hey, so, but like, then you all know, if you take, I remember I took 4C breadcrumbs, and I took organic breadcrumbs, and I showed it to somebody. Look all the chemicals in 4Cs. And in this one, it says breadcrumbs. It's breadcrumbs. Why is there all this stuff in here? And it drives me crazy. And I look and I try to explain something. I said, it's horrible. Drinking tap water is horrible. I don't need fluoride. I don't need chlorine, right? And somebody told me, oh, the fluoride's good for your teeth. It's not. It's a byproduct from aluminum that the guy made a deal many years ago to get rid of his byproduct. But now you take chlorine. And I told somebody, I said, well, they got chlorine. It keeps it sanitary. I said, I'm gonna tell you what. I told my friend, he got a Poland Spring bottle. I said, there's no chlorine in that, right? So I took some Clorox bleach with a drop, and I was going to put it in his water. He said, what are you doing? I said, put a drop of chlorine in there, right? You drink it out of tap. He said, I'm not drinking that. I said, but you drink it out of the tap every day. I did a test on the water that comes out of my sink, and it's a 0.01 reading of chlorine. You can smell it. Especially if you don't drink tap water no more. Now I know when I'm washing dishes, I can smell the chlorine because I don't get it in my system anymore. But as far as eating healthy and choosing the right things, your chances of survival without antibiotics is 100 times. I'll tell you 3 things that I do every morning, and if you guys, maybe some of you do it already, right? And if you guys do the 3 things I tell you to do every morning, right? I want you to get back in touch with me and tell me the last time you got sick. In the morning I wake up, I juice fruits and vegetables in a juicer. It's called a Vitamix. I drink that. I take a teaspoon of Manuka honey. It's called Manuka honey. And I take a teaspoon of elderberry concentrate in water, all in 8 ounces of water, right? And then I take 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, Bragg's apple cider vinegar, right? Every morning. This is what I do every morning. You know, I got to knock on wood on this one. I haven't been sick in years. In years. And like I said, I work around a lot of germ-infested areas, you know, and I haven't been sick, you know, and that's one of the biggest things to being a prepper is keeping yourself healthy, right? Get out there, walk, get out there, run, right? If you're gonna have a place to go to, take some of your trips with your pack on and walk with your pack on, you know, just get used to the weight, you know, and find out what's comfortable for you, because believe me, walking with something like this and this for about 8 hours is going to dig into you. So you got to really find out your high points, right? And then you can pad them correctly. Also, as far as you had the question about the antibiotics, you could look into stockpiling fish antibiotics. This is what I hear going around.
I have
It's
some.
fish antibiotics. It's the same antibiotics you would take, but in a lower dose. So you got to, if you're taking antibiotics for a sinus infection or something like that, and you usually take 500 milligrams, you got to just look at with the milligrams in fish antibiotics, you know.
It's the same as pretty much for human.
I must say for the video, I am not a doctor, and I'm not advising you to do this, all right? But you could use fish antibiotics, all right?
Or,
It's
I
the
was
same
on a
thing.
trip to India recently. There you can buy them all.
A video on my Mojo Pin 12 site. That's my site, and it's a kind of a flu type thing that I make. It's like made with all these vegetables and all this stuff, and I drink it whenever I'm about to get the flu or something. It's like kind of a homeopathic way of fixing the flu. That would be something I would can. Like so those are things you learn, hobbies that are going to be part of your prep, and you might end up enjoying it. And that's so. I'll get in touch with you. I'll write down your email address, and I'll send you the link of that radio, and it's up to you if you want to buy it or not.
Well, the question was more in the area. The radios you were referring to are in a specific frequency band, and because they're in that frequency band, they only visual distance. So beyond 30 miles, you can't see anything. That's why, and it's the house in between. You can't.
Yeah, if you want to go long range radio, you know, you're going ham radio.
Although
Yeah.
there are 2 alternatives that are still available to us without making a major license, which is CB and VHF.
Yeah,
Do you
I'm
have
all
ex-
for CB.
CB.
Okay,
You ever
so
go on
guys-
CB now? There's nobody on it anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's on it.
It's open.
It was a cool thing back in the '80s, you know, but nobody's on it. I got one in my room. I turn it on and there's nobody talking. Once I get a truck driver who's lost, you know. That's it.
You're talking about the Berkeley filter. You can buy the kit with 2 buckets
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
for about $80.
Yeah.
True.
Instead of buying the whole thing for a few $100s.
Well, the reason why I'm doing it, like getting the whole thing, is because
Right.
I know I'm going to have a group of people at my house. I know it. Because
Okay.
they already know I'm the prepper of the neighborhood. So they're going to beeline my house like in a second. But I'm not going to turn them away.
Yeah, what's your address?
But I'm not
I'll
going
give it to you later, $10. Right? Look at all this stuff. Come on.
I know what I'm going to comment on. No, I know I'm going to have some people show up. Now, I have a prepper group. I have a group, 8 people right now that will come to my house. But they're coming with stuff. They're actually prepping and doing their own thing, and they're going to bring stuff to my house, not coming at the end. You're going to have to expect that some of your neighbors, if they know, I mean, some people say, don't let anybody know. Granted, it's too late. I did YouTube videos. I mean, the reason why is because the way I look at it, I laugh when I watch The Road and they found that bunker in the thing.
No,
I
no,
would.
you'll be all right. Just put a sign in front of your house. Food and water down this way. You'll be okay. You'll go right by.
Well, remember that the
It always
person
was.
who made that thing
Yeah.
was like dead in the bed. I'm like, that's gonna be me. I'm gonna have all this prepping stuff, and I'm gonna like die when a nuke goes off in New York City. But I don't care because I know I'm safe and I know where I'm gonna be when I die. I have. So it makes me feel good knowing that someone else is going to benefit from my prepping in that sense. Now, if someone tries to steal or come and take it, well, they're going to have a heck of a problem with me. But you can't just sit there and hide and hoard your stuff and just sit there like mine. You know, you have neighbors. We're a social animal. We're meant to be around other people. If you notice, the people that are out in the mountains, they're bat crazy. They're out of their minds. You know, the Unabomber, he was living in a shed in the middle of nowhere, sending out bombs. Those people are nuts because they're away from human contact. They can't relate with humans. We're a social being. That's why we're here now. That's why we want to build community. So that's what it's all about.
That's a good idea. You got people around you that you go to these little meetups, and the more you get into this, you will go to more meetups, right? And the best thing we do is network with people.
Yeah.
You know, you see people you get along with. It doesn't have to be about prepping. You might find somebody that has the same interest. You might like racing model cars. You might like, you know, doing certain things, and you start growing relationships with other people that had the same mindset you got. And before you know, you got a nice little motorcycle gang, you know, and you just could go on to the sunset. But you can meet people, you know, and it just doesn't have to be about prepping. You could, you know, you meet people in this room that might have a hobby that you enjoy too.
Yeah, Dave likes cross-dressing, right, Dave?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Got my shirt in the car. Leave me alone.
Brooklyn.
You know,
And you'll be surprised how many preppers there are out there.
yeah,
You'll
be surprised.
I was buying eggs from a lady down the road, farm fresh eggs, before I got my chickens. And the lady was there, and I says, oh, I'll buy like 4 dozen. She says, you eat a lot of eggs? I says, no, like, I'm going to take some, I'm going to pickle them and try that. We're preppers. And she goes, oh, we're preppers too. Come on, let me show you this, let me show you that. And you just, while you're out there talking about it, you know,
And
they don't go telling everybody, but you'll be surprised how many preppers there are.
And a good source of, like, you could get a lot of knowledge and a lot of good ideas. Like, if you're not searching YouTube already, right? You could get a lot of good ideas from YouTube, but you know, you got to weed out a lot of the bullshit, right? You might watch an hour video, like you could be up all night watching videos of people, and if you walk away getting one little idea, that's good. You know, even my videos, I'm not going to say there's a lot of nonsense in my video. I like joking around, you know. But if you get that one little bit of information, it's good. You know, you can't take everything with a grain of salt. You will find information.
Yeah, there's great.
Walking on the beach.